Anderson Cooper is stepping away from 60 Minutes after nearly 20 years as a correspondent, and the announcement came through a statement published by Variety on February 16th. The reason, as Cooper put it himself, has nothing to do with contracts or career pivots, and everything to do with two little boys at home who still want their father around. In the statement, Cooper described his time at the news magazine as one of the great honors of his career, saying he got to tell amazing stories alongside some of the best producers, editors, and camera crews in the business. He joined 60 Minutes during the 2006-07 season, and the 2025-26 season marked his 20th year on the program. His work there won 2 News and Documentary Emmy Awards in 2017, one for a segment called The Music of Zomba Prison, and another for a profile of jazz prodigy Joey Alexander, titled Little Jazzman. That kind of output across 2 decades, while simultaneously anchoring a nightly program on CNN, represents a workload that most journalists would find difficult to sustain, and Cooper sustained it longer than almost anyone expected. But here's the thing about that balance he mentioned. It was always a carefully managed arrangement, not a permanent one. His work at 60 Minutes came through a formal agreement between CNN, where he has been a full-time employee since December 2001, and CBS News. He was never on staff at CBS. He was a CNN anchor who contributed to a CBS program, and that agreement held for nearly 2 decades because Cooper made it work through sheer scheduling discipline. That changed when his sons, 5-year-old Wyatt and 4-year-old Sebastian, entered the picture in a way that shifted his priorities entirely. His words in the Variety statement were straightforward. For nearly 20 years, he balanced 2 jobs at 2 networks. But little kids change the math, and he wants to spend as much time with them as possible while they still want to spend time with him. Cooper remains at CNN, where he anchors Anderson Cooper 360 on weeknights at 8 o'clock Eastern, and also hosts The Whole Story with Anderson Cooper, a weekly news magazine that launched on Sundays in April 2023. He also hosts a podcast called All There Is with Anderson Cooper, which he started in 2022 as an exploration of grief, drawing on his own personal losses. None of that is going away. The 60 Minutes chapter is closing, but the CNN chapter, which began more than 2 decades ago, continues. To understand what made this departure worth noting, it helps to go back to how Cooper got to CNN in the first place. He graduated from Yale University in 1989 with a degree in political science and international relations, and rather than take the conventional path into established news organizations, he manufactured his own entry into journalism. He got a job at Channel One News as a fact-checker, then talked his way into the field by forging his own press credentials and traveling to Myanmar to self-produce coverage of political unrest there. Channel One aired the footage and eventually made him their chief international correspondent, which sent him to Bosnia, Iran, Israel, Russia, Rwanda, Somalia, South Africa, and Vietnam before he was 30 years old. From Channel One, he moved to ABC News in 1995, where he worked as a correspondent and co-anchored World News Now, the network's overnight broadcast that aired from 3 in the morning to 5 in the morning. The hours wore him down, and in 2000 he accepted a detour that surprised people who knew him as a serious war correspondent. He became the host of The Mole, an ABC reality competition series. 2 seasons later, the September 11th attacks pulled him back toward hard news with a sense of urgency, and CNN hired him in December 2001. The move to CNN turned out to be the decision that defined the rest of his career. He served as a weekend primetime anchor starting in 2002, moved to primetime in March 2003 as the Iraq War drew massive viewer attention, and then on September 8, 2003, Anderson Cooper 360 launched as his own nightly program. The show established him as an anchor willing to report from the field rather than from a desk, and that reputation hardened into something much more visible in 2005 when Hurricane Katrina struck the Gulf Coast. His coverage of Katrina is the moment most people point to as the turning point in his public profile. Reporting from New Orleans while the city flooded around him, Cooper challenged politicians on air about the government's response in a way that felt different from standard television news delivery. He became emotional on camera in ways anchors rarely allowed themselves to be, and viewers responded. His style of journalism, direct and clearly invested in the outcome, made Anderson Cooper 360 one of the most watched programs on CNN and made him one of the most recognizable faces in American television news. Since 2002, he has hosted CNN's New Year's Eve broadcast from Times Square, and since 2017, his friend Andy Cohen has joined him as co-host. Since 2007, he has hosted CNN Heroes, the network's annual special honoring everyday people for extraordinary contributions to their communities. He has won 18 Emmy Awards across his career, been part of CNN teams that earned a Peabody Award for Katrina coverage and an Alfred I. DuPont Columbia University Award for coverage of the 2004 tsunami in South Asia, and received the National Order of Honor and Merit from the government of Haiti in 2010 for his reporting after the earthquake era. In 2007, he became the first openly LGBT person to moderate a presidential debate in a general election. Away from the anchor desk, Cooper has published several books. His 2006 memoir, Dispatches from the Edge, about his years reporting from war zones and disaster areas, made the New York Times bestseller list. In 2016, he co-wrote The Rainbow Comes and Goes with his mother, the artist and heiress Gloria Vanderbilt, and in 2021 published Vanderbilt, The Rise and Fall of an American Dynasty. Cooper is the great-great-great-grandson of Cornelius Vanderbilt, the 19th century shipping and railroad tycoon, through his mother's line. His father, the writer Wyatt Emery Cooper, died when Anderson was 11 years old, and his brother Carter died by suicide in 1988, the year before Anderson graduated from Yale. Those losses, and the weight of grief that came with them, became the subject of his podcast, All There Is, which launched in 2022. The show explores how people process loss, and Cooper brought his own grief into it openly, describing the project as deeply personal. All of which is to say that 20 years at 60 Minutes, while anchoring full-time at CNN, writing books, posting a podcast, and doing a weekly news magazine on Sundays, adds up to a schedule that left very little room. Wyatt and Sebastian, it seems, finally made the math impossible to ignore. E! News reached out to Cooper for comment beyond the published statement, but had not heard back as of this report.